Good morning and welcome to the Point. This morning we start our program by talking with the Attorney General of the state of Michigan, Bill Schuette, not about any pending litigation, but about a program that's being installed in schools across the state to help young people deal with problems they may encounter. It's called OK to Say. One of the main reasons I invited you to be on the show, and you're always welcome, of course, and have been a frequent guest, but not so long ago, I attended one of the events where you appeared talking about the OK to Say program.
Yeah. Great program.
Well, here's what happens. As a reporter, very often you sit through a lot of different programs to get to talk to whomever it is that's presenting because you have questions about something else. That's kind of the nature of our business.
Sure.
The difference was this time, up at Cedar Springs High School, was the impact that this OK to Say presentation had. Not just what you had to say, but what the PowerPoint presentation had, and the other professionals who were talking about this. And I thought, this is a subject that impacts every single person watching this show, because at some point they're associated with young men and women who are going through those formative years where a lot of things lurk out there that can have a very negative impact, and this is one way that you and others in the legislature have tried to work to help them out. So start kind of from the beginning and explain to our viewers what OK to Say is.
You bet. And Rick, I'm delighted to be on your program, and thanks very much so we can talk about OK to Say, which is Michigan's school safety initiative. Think back years ago, and you and I might have been in school, or some of the parents watching today remember when they were in school. You did things a different way. I remember when I went to my bus stop in Midland, Michigan, there was a young guy who was overweight, and he got picked on. And I went to the guys who were picking on this friend of mine who had a weight problem. And I said, don't do that anymore. And that was my first excursion into how you stop someone being bullied. Well, it's a different world now, and now you can get bullied or picked on, with a tweet or with a Facebook posting, what have you, because everybody's connected. And OK to Say is Michigan's school safety initiative with an effort and goal to try to stop school violence and bullying before it occurs. And this came from a woman who had been in Colorado during the Columbine tragedy when that school shooting occurred. She had moved to Cadillac, Michigan, was the school superintendent, Joe Spry, and she brought this idea to some talented legislators in my office, and that's how OK to Say, a school safety initiative, was born.
We're going to talk about some of the actual applications, how you can actually do this, but explain for people who don't know why this exists, because you touched on part of it, but when you and I were in school, there were always kids that would bully, and certainly I experienced it, but you experienced it for a brief few moments at school or whatever, and you went home and it was kind of behind you. But as you talked about Facebook, Twitter, all of the other social media, this can be 24/7. You never lose it. I mean, it's every time you look at your phone, somebody's saying something nasty to or about you. So it really permeates all of a student's life, or certainly can. And so how would this be used to try to combat that?
Well, you have two children, young children, 7 and 3.
Right.
My wife Cynthia and I, our children are 23 and almost 21. And we've gone through this, and everyone wants to be connected, right, all the time with your devices, and it's Snapchat or what have you. And what happens, unfortunately, today, from time to time, where someone will pick on, ridicule, make fun of, and put it on a post, and it'll get spread around, boom, immediately, and that can have jarring impact on people. And you see today the skyrocketing problems of teen suicide, bullying problems, and even when there have been some sad instances where students have gone to a different school district, but it kept following them by folks who didn't follow the golden rule of treat people how you want to be treated, and that can have disastrous consequences. And so what we do with the OK to Say program is go to schools all across the state. We did 1,000 schools, not I personally, but a team of people and I go as often as I can, like I was at Cedar Springs Springs. We've been to Rockford and other places in the Grand Rapids area as well to try to talk about, make sure you're responsible with electronic devices. And OK to Say is a 24/7, 365 effort where you can, if someone learns of maybe a threat or to someone might cause harm to herself or himself, and we've had instances of this, where you can call it into one place where the Michigan State Police monitors it, and then alerts the closest first responder. It might be a police officer, might be a sheriff, might be the school itself, might be a crisis hotline. That's how we try to do this, and we try to communicate with kids, young men, young women of differing ages, on how to be responsible and how to alert others if you think there might be a problem. Parents as well, teachers also.
So think about this as a central clearinghouse that is anonymous if people want to be in touch.
That's a key feature. It's absolute confidentiality, because we're trying to break this culture of silence. Don't be a rat, don't be a narc, all that stupid stuff. Now we're trying to have a culture of responsibility and sharing.
When you were talking about this, I was taken about how broad this could be. For example, if I'm someone being bullied, I can call this hotline or use the app. We'll talk about all of that too. Right. But it's also, as you pointed out, if you know of somebody who may be, or you suspect of being abused sexually, either in a relationship or at home.
That's right.
Or drug use, or somebody who's being bullied, or somebody who might want to do harm to themselves. All of those things can be handled through this application.
Absolutely, and it's not a replacement for 911. Let's not misunderstand that. But it's a way, if someone has learned that someone might cause violence to him or herself, maybe doing something dumb like bringing a weapon to school, you can alert someone to that fact. And the point is that this is a way we try to be tech friendly. So you can have a tweet, a text, it can be email, an 800 number. However you communicate, OK to Say is there. And we started this in 2014. Over 4,000 tips. We've saved lives, and the goal is, if you can just save one person's life, just one person's life, then we've been successful. And it's not foolproof by any means, but it's a way to get in front of things and try to break the culture of silence. It's 24/7, it's tech friendly, and in 81% of the instances, and you triggered something in my mind, 81% of the instances, a survey done by the FBI and the Department of Education, in 81% of the instances, someone else knows of this act of violence or problem that might cause. And we're trying to encourage people to step up, help, and it's OK to say, hey, there's a problem coming.
One of the other things that I was taken with during this is that you had several hundred kids, middle school, high school age students in there.
Hundreds and hundreds.
And
filled that gymnasium
the gym was filled
in Cedar Springs.
And there was a point in the presentation where there were a number of pictures and notes left by children who had taken their lives.
Yeah.
It was a dramatic moment on screen, and there wasn't a sound in that room except the presentation. What do you find the impact to be? Because it was stark as I was in there.
Well, it's incredibly powerful. And there are some really courageous and brave parents who've lost their children due to bullying on a wide variety of issues, who've come forward to speak about this and talk about what happens when there's a teen suicide and how just tragic and sad that is. You could have heard a pin drop. You're absolutely right. And I think it has impact, and that's why we can reach out, talk to folks. The fact that we're having this conversation here today is a big deal, because we have a team of people who would like to go to a school, private, public, no matter whatever it is, of various ages, to try to get in and offer this element of hope called OK to Say.
When you go in, you have a lot of things, and I don't know how well you'll be able to see these, but we'll put these up in full screen fashion. But you have a lot of signage that you can put up in different places for people to be able to. Like I said, we'll put these up so you can see them. But this gives you all of the different applications and the way you can go, and it shows the number of different ways. As you say, you try to make it very electronic friendly, very savvy for the kids. What is the response when you go into the schools? Obviously, I saw the immediate response, but After going in and doing these presentations, do you see a marked change in what happens? Are you able to track what happens within the schools because of the program?
Well, we are working on that, and again, in 2015, we received 1,000 tips. When the folks from the MSP who do a great job, the Michigan State Police, who are kind of the controller of all of this information disseminated out to the closest first responder, they've said we've saved lives, and I think that's really the biggest stamp of approval, so to speak, that we've saved lives and we're communicating, and every single thing we do helps. And you know, it's a complicated world, as you've said. You know, how you get bullied, pushed around today is a lot different from when you and I were in grade school or junior high, what have you, and it takes different techniques, and I think we've done that. But I got to give credit to this outstanding school superintendent, the legislators who helped push this through, and the MSP, and we have a team of folks at the Department of Attorney General who do a superb job of a meeting. They go from, you know, UP to the low P, Indiana line, lake to lake, really great group.
How hard is it to get teens to understand that it is okay? Because you said it. There's a culture of silence, but you don't want to rat out your friend.
Right.
You don't want to be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't want to say, hey, I think somebody's doing something wrong or might do something to themselves. So how do you get past that, particularly when you have very impressionable, very vulnerable teenagers who are dealing with hormones and every other thing that
Sure.
goes on during high school?
Absolutely.
It makes it a difficult time.
Well, I think by being really direct about it and not pulling any punches, talking about teen suicide, talking about problems of bringing a gun to school. We've stopped fights, we've stopped a knife being brought, we've stopped someone who was contemplating suicide by this, and talking about that says, hey, this counts. And I think the beauty of this is the confidentiality. So you don't have to fear intimidation. Plus, you know, we have to move past this, you know, don't rat on people. That is so stupid. We have to say, you know, everybody's life is important, and every child needs to be dealt with care and dignity, respect, privacy, and okay to say has all those features wrapped into one.
I want to talk for just another minute about this, because I know you've been into a lot of schools. Do you feel like this is fully implemented, or do you still have more places where you want to roll this out with a more serious impact? Because obviously this isn't a problem that knows any boundaries.
We, you know, does not know any boundaries, and we try to tailor the message because of these trained folks we send from school to school, and we've done over 100 school districts in 15, for example. And what we try to do is tailor the message to certain ages, and I think we need to continue to do more and more of this. And I think it's important. We get questions all the time, can you come? And I would hope maybe after this feature today, there'll be other parents or administrators or school officials say, hey, let's bring OK to Say into our school, and we'd love to do that.
And the thing they can do, they can obviously contact your office, or they can go to woodtv.com, and we will have a link to your office and the resources for OK to Say, so they can contact you directly that way too.
That'd be terrific. Thank you.
If you need more information about the OK to Say program, you can just go to our website at woodtv.com, go to the Point section, and you'll find the information there. And we'll be back with more To the Point in just a moment. Welcome back to the Point. We continue, at least briefly, our conversation with Attorney General Bill Schuette. We wanted to know exactly where he thought the investigation into the Flint water crisis was and where it's going from here. Let's move on to some other subjects.
Sure.
You have been investigating, your department, along with a number of investigators, have been investigating the situation in Flint, to the point that a few weeks ago we were in Flint, as you announced.
You were there.
Two state employees, one city employee, charges. I know the investigation continues, and I know you can't talk about the specifics of the investigation, nor would I expect you to. But in general, as this moves forward, do you feel like you're getting closer and closer to uncovering what so many people have been asking for months now, how this happened?
Yes, you know, and we're on the hunt. And I think what we established 3 weeks ago, when we filed charges against 3 people involved in this tragedy in Flint, where so many things went so tragically wrong, we sent a message that it's the step forward in rebuilding and regaining trust and confidence in Michigan government. That something does work, and there's accountability. And my responsibilities as Attorney General would be to make sure if there any laws were broken, I will hold each and every person accountable. People expect that. People deserve that. And it's a message that, yes, indeed, the families of Michigan and Flint, that we're restoring confidence in government. And we're in the hunt, and there'll be more charges. This is only the beginning. It's only the start, and more to come. And the point is, we have to have accountability, and that indeed will happen. And the real thing is, there's one system of justice. Doesn't matter how big a shot you are, whether you're a big shot or no shot at all. When you break the law, there are consequences, and that's really the message of Flint.
When you look at this, yours is not the only investigation going on. State police are doing it. I think may have completed their investigation.
They completed that investigation.
Justice Department, do they have one going? Are we aware?
The federal department. We work very closely with the Department of Justice and the federal officials from the Eastern District of Michigan on this Flint issue. Plus, the Genesee County prosecutor, a guy named David Layton, who does an outstanding job.
So you've got a lot of people looking into this. How long do you, I know the answer is till you get all of the answers, but in a more calendar-centric mode, how long do these investigations continue?
It varies. And I think there's an element of anxiousness out there that people want to say, hey, what's going on? And demonstrated that 3 weeks ago with those charges, and there'll be more to come. And in fact, I guess the best way to say it'll be soon, capital S, capital O, capital N. It's a fair question. But the point is that we will go exactly where the truth takes us. There are no targets, but nobody's off the table either. And the fact is, we'll go where the 2.5 million emails take us. And that's really where this road goes. And the point is, people will be nothing but the facts, just kind of Joe Friday. And I think that's what people deserve.
We also had the opportunity to talk to the Attorney General about the current state of presidential politics, but we don't quite have time for that in this show. Hopefully we can bring you that in a week or so. Coming up, an important conversation about the condition of the Grand Rapids Home for Veterans from the director of the state agency that oversees that home. That's next. To the Point. Welcome back to the Point. The Grand Rapids Home for Veterans has been the subject of a number of news stories that we've done right here on 24-Hour News 8. From staffing problems, privatization, and general complaints, we wanted to find out what the condition of the home is now that there is a new director of Michigan Veterans Affairs. He's from right here in Grand Rapids. He's a former judge, Jim Redford. With regard to the way that this home has been run over the years, are we moving closer to a situation where you are going to be able to control the number of complaints, control the number of problems or perceived problems at this home? Because quite frankly, it has been something that has been a source of news coverage for quite some time.
Right. In direct answer to your question, are we going to be able to proceed to a point where there are diminishing complaints? It is certainly my hope, and frankly, it's my expectation that the answer is yes, we're going to. And I think we're already taking and making material steps to do that. As you know, I've lived in Grand Rapids with my family since the day I left active duty in the Navy on July 31st, 1990. So I've been here since August 1st. I drilled as a reservist just down the street from the Grand Rapids Home for Veterans. I ran my annual Navy PT test. I can't tell you how many times and how slow it was, but I always passed by the Grand Rapids Home for Veterans. So while I didn't go there, in the building even before I became the director, I'm acutely aware of the concerns, of the issues which have been raised really well by you and your partners in the media over the years. They concern me, they concern the governor, they concern Major General Vadney, and we're putting in a full court press, if you will, to get the systems in place to fix this.
When you look at this home, and I appreciate the fact, first of all, somebody said the other day, he said, well, what are you going to talk to him about? And I said, well, I'm going to talk to him about the current condition, but I've got to talk to him about what led us to this condition, understanding that it's not of your making because you weren't there. You were sitting on the bench when much of this was going on.
I was,
so, and I want to make that clear because my line of questioning is really about how you get to a fix, but you can't get to a fix until you get to a point where you see the problems. And one of the questions that has been asked very pointedly is the privatization of some of the services, the J2S contract. I appreciate the fact that there are all kinds of things about the contract you can't talk about.
Right.
And frankly, I don't care so much about the contract as I do about the performance. And has that performance been part of the problem?
I think staffing levels have been part of the problem. It's empirically present in the reviews by the Auditor General that there were staffing issues. And staffing is a challenge at any facility, but I think it has been a substantial challenge at the Grand Rapids Home for Veterans. It's not just a staffing piece, though. I agree with you completely. Before you can fix a problem, you have to be able to identify it. And that is why the department, the agency, and the governor's office, and the governor himself are grateful for the candid and very critical assessments, critical meaning specific and detailed assessments of the Auditor General's report and of the other reviews. And we're looking at what can be done to fix them. And before the Auditor General's report came out, we have fixes were already put in place. The creation of the Michigan Veterans Health System with Leslie Shanlian, longtime expert and 20 years of experience in healthcare. Hiring of directors of nursing, director of social services, directors of business practices, the use of medical records, electronic medical records. I don't know if you have loved ones who have been in nursing homes. I do. My mom lived here in West Michigan at one of our wonderful facilities for 6 years before her passing. And so I've seen, what we can be, and I know that we can get there with the right effort and with the right team.
When you think about the staffing levels, and I think it's generally, you say it, and I think all of us have observed it, at least anecdotally through reports and whatever, that the staffing levels have been a problem. If the staffing levels have been a problem, then is that a problem with the people who are providing the staffing? I mean, if there aren't enough people there, if there aren't a number of people that are called for by the contract, isn't that the problem?
My focus is not on what is the cause of the problem. My focus is on how are we going to solve the problem. We've identified we have a problem. How are we going to solve the problem? And I think the way in which we can solve the problem is, as I've already said, the systems in place, creation of the medical system, the system in its entirety, supplementing the current contractors with other sources of certified nurse assistants, having our LPNs and our RNs be prepared to take more shifts if necessary. We're exercising those avenues of relief so that we can be true and faithful and bear fidelity to those who bore fidelity to our nation.
How much tension is there between the more traditional state-employed staff at the Veterans Home and the J2S staff?
I think you would have to ask individuals. My hope would be that everyone recognizes that we're on one team, and it's called Team Veteran. Whether you have a check that is paid for by a private contractor or a check that is paid for by the Treasury of the state of Michigan, we all have the same critically important mission, and that is providing quality care, respectful care, safe care for our veterans. I know that I've been told there's been some tension in the past. We're trying to put in place leadership that is going to remove that and make it so that if there is a difference, we remove those differences. We're all there for the same mission.
Our thanks to both the Attorney General and the Director of Michigan Veterans Affairs for talking with us this morning, and thank you for joining us. We hope you'll do that every Sunday morning as we move closer to the presidential conventions. We'll be in Cleveland and in Philadelphia. We'll be bringing you the very latest on what's going on with Campaign 2016. As you know, those contests are getting close to being settled, but not everybody's happy about it. We'll have a lot more about that every Sunday morning at 10 o'clock when you join us. To the Point.